So I'd like to do a little visualization exercise, which I've borrowed from a colleague of mine at the University of Edinburgh. So I want you to imagine a place where you feel relaxed, grounded, where the stress in your shoulders melts away, somewhere you feel safe. And imagine what that place looks like. And in your mind, reach out and touch something. What do you feel? It could be sand, maybe you're down on the beach just outside. Maybe you feel grass, tree bark maybe. And in your mind, look up. What do you see? And for me, I'm lying in the grass in France, in the mountains where I grew up. And around me, I can hear waterfalls. I can smell the meadows. I can feel the grass under my fingertips. When I look up, I see birds. And I think there's an ant trying to crawl up my finger. Okay, so come back to me in this room, in here and now. How many of you, when you were imagining that safe space, where you felt grounded and relaxed, how many of you were thinking you were in front of your computer screens? Or in a meeting, trying to work out the next deal? I'm imagining not very many of you. But we live in a weirdly parallel universe, where we spend the majority of our time in a world which seeks to make money, that dog-eat-dog world, cutthroat, climb over the next guy to make a deal, and then do it all again. And that world is systematically destroying the world that you went to in your minds just now to seek solace and meaning. And so somehow we have to bring those two worlds into the same space. Now, in my day job at the University of Edinburgh, I help clients to think through options and responsibilities in sustainable transition. And historically, that's been around carbon. But more and more, clients are now coming along and asking for help with integrating biodiversity into transition plans, into compliance and reporting. And as companies do that, they're finding that there's good news and there's bad news when it comes to tackling biodiversity challenges. So the bitter pill first, the bad news. Unlike climate change, there's no single measurable thing that we can identify and control like CO2, like carbon dioxide. And so just as each of you had a different image in your mind just now when you reached out and you thought about that safe space, biodiversity is also infinitely variable across space and time. And that means that it's harder to account for biodiversity. And that means there's no one-size-fits-all for how to do it. I said there's good news as well. The good news is that unlike climate change, bounce back from biodiversity improvements is remarkably quick. So we can see improvements within a relatively short space of time. To the strapline about local versus global, of course, we have to do both. So the variability of biodiversity means that we have to act and adapt strategies and actions locally, and that's a good thing. That means that we get to do good things locally which are meaningful for communities. But it also means that we have to think and act globally so that the changes and improvements that we make locally don't just push problems out there to other ecosystems. We were talking earlier on about exporting waste. So what does that mean? It means that we can't take the same approach to nature as we have to balance sheets. We need to be radical, we need to think outside the box, because the safe space that you just imagined can't be bought. And that deep peace and healing that you feel in those spaces, that's not a transaction, but it is under threat from the way that we think and prioritize and do business. So I have two calls to action to leave you with today. One is to prioritize your biodiversity policy. Trillions of dollars of exposed risk are still out there in the world's biggest companies in terms of biodiversity impacts and dependencies. And so everybody needs to think about how to map their value chains and use that to get on top of your biodiversity policies. And the second thing that I would like to call you to is to understand, to realize, and to internalize that this is your role. I'm going to call on Yanis Stornaros, who was speaking this morning, who said that we all have a role to play. It's your job. This is a hot topic. Biodiversity is a hot topic, but it's not a hot potato. So please don't pass it on. It's your problem. Thank you.